Welcome, everyone, to the mostly monthly Bliss Talks. I am Krista Hammerbacher Hoppala. I am a consciousness design guide. I have been doing that since 2005, and it is a singular joy in my life. And I am grateful that in whatever now you are watching this, that you are here for this Bliss Talk. Our theme for this talk is the bliss of yes. This is all about the power of choice and following our yes energy, discerning our yes energy, honoring it, and recognizing its value on our path to enlightenment. Whatever that means for you, whether that means that you are taking on a lighter load or lightening your load as you're walking through this earthly experience, or it means something more deeply spiritual to you, all of that is welcome here. And I'd love to start before we dive into the theme to share a little bit about consciousness design. It's not a phrase many folks know. And I laughingly say, that's because I made it up. That is my approach to working one-on-one, one-on-two in circles and retreats with humans of every stripe from all over the planet. And it really invites in our whole self. And what I mean by that is beyond holistic. What I mean by that is it invites in the four dimensions of the human experience in equal and synergistic value. That includes our head, our mind, our brain, that very cognitive, linear, logical self that's really elevated in the patriarchal system as really the only way that we know anything. And what we know in our hearts is that's not true. Our hearts speak wisdom as well, in the form of emotion, in the form of deep intuitive knowing that also lives in the other dimension of the human experience, our body, and the wisdom that our body brings through feeling, through somatic experiences. Sometimes somatic experiences we're not super excited about, but those are the pieces of wisdom we need to listen most deeply to. And lastly, the experience of being energy. The fact that even in this human experience, as dense and clear as it seems, that we are sitting here in these chairs or with our AirPods in, walking on the trail as we're listening to this Bliss Talk, all we are is energy. What we know about this is we hear it oftentimes as cliche or as pop culture or as new age. What we know about this is pure science without question. Just because we can't see it in that way with our own eyes doesn't mean it's not real and true in our experience. We're just not versed in thinking of ourselves as energy first. So that is a facet of consciousness design as well. In addition to incorporating the four dimensions of the human experience, consciousness design also honors the fact that all we are is energy, which I invite you into the wonder and mystery of that. I get it. It's a mind-blowing, almost counterintuitive experience, but when you sink into those other sources of wisdom, it's deeply intuitive, and it registers in a way that our brain or our mind may reject, and that's okay. That is perfectly okay. But know that that is a facet of consciousness design. So in addition to that, another facet of consciousness design, being that we are all energy, is that our thought or intention directs that energy, that we are the artists of our life. And the fact remains that every choice we make shapes the world. You are here watching this Bliss Talk right now because you made the choice to do that. For some reason, somehow, something called to you to listen. And that's what we're going to dive into today, is that calling, that understanding of, yes, I want to do this. Where does that yes even come from? But before that, the last facet that I want to offer, consciousness design I have developed it very deeply in my next book, The Bliss Manifesto, but I'm offering to you four perspectives of those four facets of that perspective right now, because it's here for us to hold our arms wide around and understand that what we're talking about today is on that foundation. There's a lot more detail in the book that I look forward to breaking down into more Bliss Talks over time. So, the last facet of consciousness design that's important for us today is the idea that we're all mirrors and messengers for one another. That as infinite faces of the same creative energy, of the same life force, whether that's full science energy that we're arising out of the quantum vacuum, or you believe in a creator, it really ultimately does not matter for consciousness design, because you are following your yes that's most aligned with your expression of consciousness this time around. And so, with that being said, recognizing that we're all mirrors and messengers for one another means that every human, and I offer every sentient being you encounter, including the bug flying around my office in the dead of Maine winter, is a mirror and messenger for me. And my consciousness is here to remind me that I can express and create what that means for me. Not a lesson, but think of it as, if we're talking about creating as life as art, that is one way that I'm choosing the colors on my palette for the beautiful work of art that I'm painting that is my life. And so it brings also a playfulness to it as well, bringing in that creation. So that's a bit about consciousness design that anchors us into today's theme, which is the bliss of yes. And what I offer is, oftentimes when we are in the hustle, when we're doing our thing, what ends up happening is the yeses and the nos feel almost forced. They feel like, these are choices I have to make, or we should all over ourselves. We're getting this focus from the external that really is ultimately a distraction from the value of what the yes and the no ultimately means for you. And so, what I offer is, for first and foremost, us to recognize, why do you even have preferences? Why do you even do what you do on this planet? Why are you even connected to your friends, to your partner, to your partners, to your work colleagues? How did you land there? And oftentimes, when we think about those things, we go into this idea of, well, I made this choice, and I followed my path, or I met someone and they drew me into this experience. Again, take it a bit deeper. Why? Why that path? Why did you say yes to meeting that person? Why did you decide to write that book, or start that company, or make that beautiful painting? Why? Take it even deeper. And I'm just going to give you a moment just to notice that yes, that path arises from somewhere. And just play with that for just a minute. Where does that yes even come from? Well, I think about it this way. I knew that back in the day, I wanted to be an astronaut. I was going to go into the Air Force. I was going to fly the most intense fighter jets I could find so I could get into space. And I realized, okay, so that was a yes for me until it wasn't. When I realized I am not suited for the discipline it takes to become an astronaut, but I still love space. And so then my yes veered into quantum physics of interest. Did I become a quantum physicist? No, that wasn't aligned for me, because that yes of that realm of education didn't land for me. It wasn't a full yes. And so, what I offer to you is to recognize that deep yes comes from somewhere, but it doesn't always mean that each individual yes is going to lead you to that ultimate point. But what it does is it informs you, it expands your consciousness to say, oh, I learned a lot about space and I know where my no was. So I kept following that yes. Again, keep considering, where does that yes come from? Just notice for yourself. Where I've landed now in what I offer as my gift to the world, I didn't know existed when I was thinking about being an astronaut or when I decided to do all of the other things on my path. What ended up happening was it emerged. It emerged from consciousness being self organizing because I just followed my yes. And I said, oh, I want to meet her. Oh, now she's going to give me a job. Oh, now I learned from her precisely what I needed to know to move on from that job, to say yes to something else. And again, there's a deep mystery to this when we take it even deeper and deeper and deeper. And there's also a practical level. So that's my invitation to you, is to notice consciousness design includes the mystical, but it also includes those practical choices we make to say, hey, I needed to take that job for a year and a half because I needed to make some money. And what did that job give me? It was a yes because of a reason that felt like there was a little more pressure behind it. But at the same time, it still led me in a direction that I was shaping as I was listening to my yes all along. So, with that said, as we continue to move through this self inquiry that I invite you into, what I want you to keep touching back to is why. Why do I feel a particular yes? What's deeply under that? And what I offer is we all experience what I feel is the foundation of consciousness design differently. So, my language that we are going to use moving forward, I invite you to shift that and move that for your own understanding of self, because that is also an important piece of the puzzle, that it's a vibrational match for bringing into all of the awareness your cognitive mind, your heart, your body, and the wisdom of your energy moving forward. So recognize that you get to make this your own. So when we think about yes and we think about why, ultimately, one of the things that's important to recognize is it is often clouded by those external forces that we were talking about, whether it's culture, whether it's parents expecting us to be a certain thing, whether it's our own expectation that becomes rigid and concretized, like I will become an astronaut come hell or high water. Whatever it is, these other barriers and these other constructs can often muddy our own understanding of self, which is why I keep inviting you to go deeper. That those are factors. We're not there to just ignore those. And yet at the same time, oftentimes what we do is we will feel that resistance. We will feel the energy of a no, and we will choose to push through it because of external factors, because of what looks best to our neighbors, what feels the most important for our career now, even if we want nothing to do with the career that we have. Whatever it is, that resistance is there as what I call in human physics, this friction, just like in regular physics, there's friction there. And we need to start to listen to the friction, to look under into that resistance and recognize we're not meant to power through the resistance. The resistance is there, just like hitting a guardrail, a little friction on a guardrail, like, hey, get back on the road, follow the path, and recognize that that friction or resistance has almost what I use as the language of a sacred meaning, that if our yes is sourced from our deepest essence, the life force that's connected to all, our consciousness that is here to express, we often don't know why that is, but wow, we feel compelled, we feel pulled. I always feel like I get pulled like by my heart space, like that heart mind, like, ooh, yeah, that's a yes. A no feels a little bit more like I have to be pushed from behind. That's a representation of that physics that we're talking about, that human physics. So the invitation that I give to you now is just take a moment and do a little inventory, a life question that you're thinking about right now. And it can be anything that you might find yourself wrestling with or options that you're considering. Just tune into that right now and notice in your body if you feel any constriction, any, shoulders closing in, or, self-protection, or just a dud feeling about something that you're supposed to do or have to do. That's that feeling of friction that is important to listen to. Because when you are listening to that friction, you can, instead of getting stuck in that, you can dive in deeper. Why? Why am I feeling this friction? That's the part often that becomes a cultural barrier that says, oh, you're just supposed to push through it. You're supposed to dig deeper. You're supposed to be tougher than that. What I offer is that is keeping you from your yes, that is keeping you from your path. And ultimately, that yes is leading you to bliss. It's leading you to enlightenment, whether that's just lightening your load a bit or a true spiritual path for you. Either way, consciousness design doesn't matter. How you apply it is most important to you. But what I offer is oftentimes those barriers, that resistance, culturally we're taught to either ignore, push through, or figure out a way to just make it palatable, to just dig deeper and know that the problem is us. And what I offer is that's not true from a consciousness design perspective. I'm not saying consciousness design is right or wrong. I'm saying it aligns and flows for me. And this is an opportunity for you to align and flow as well. So if we look at that opportunity to dig into the resistance and then we glean the wisdom from it, why do I feel this way? What would I want to be doing instead? Instead is a powerful noticing. What would I want to be doing instead? And you'll notice that all of that information, that energy flowing through us, is attempting to move us to an aligned flow that doesn't have friction. And just take a moment and give yourself permission to say, I want a life where I can shape my experience beyond this friction. Now, you might have some life experiences that create friction that ultimately serve your yes. I'm going to use a very simple example. I love having a beautiful sanctuary of a home. I have to take out my garbage. I don't love taking out my garbage, but I know I have to take out my garbage to have a beautiful sanctuary home to live in that doesn't smell like garbage. Is my favorite thing to take out the garbage? Absolutely not. But is it connected to my ultimate yes? Does it make me feel more blissful? Absolutely. So that's part of that discernment, to notice where the friction is showing up to move you in a different direction. What I notice is, no, I listen to that friction and I recognize this is an important task to support my yes of having a home that's beautiful sanctuary. So it's a very, rubber hits the road, simple example, but I give it over to all of you to think about those experiences in your life where you are having friction or you're experiencing barriers, but you've already determined that the greater yes is connected to your bliss. And so, you got to do your books at the end of the year if you're a business owner, or you can delegate it to release some of that friction. Or, when it comes down to it, you might have an experience of being an artist and having writer's block, or being, sitting at your canvas saying, I'm not sure what's next. But all of that serves the greater purpose of moving through that so that you are then honing that yes energy and refining it over this beautiful lifetime to get to a place where you are such a powerful, discerning, entity, that you listen with grace and ease, and you are nimble, and you are malleable, and you are evolving, and you are taking wisdom from your mind, from your heart, from your body, and that intuitive wisdom that flows through in the collective consciousness, because we are all infinite faces of that same energy. Again, quantum physics, not something that is woo woo in any way. This is straight up supported in science. So I just want to remind you all of that. I do love the skeptic believers, though. I described myself as that probably 10 years into my practice. And now here I am in a very different place, but inviting myself into what is a deeper understanding of not just in my mind, but in my heart and my body and in my energy as well. So we've talked about yes and the why of yes, that it leads us to our bliss. It helps us feel enlightened. We've talked about how barriers show up, whether they're coming externally with in interactions and relationships, or they're coming from cultural constructs that we know don't invite us into our greatest power for important reasons. That's another Bliss Talk. So, and that can feel like work ethic. That can feel like pleasure is only for those who've earned it. And my invitation to you is harnessing pleasure as power is another Bliss Talk, that if you're interested in more of that, that is there and available for you as well. And I won't stop talking about that either, because that's one of my favorite topics. So with that said, then we move beyond the barriers and into the awareness of the resistance as information to move us toward yes. It's not for us to get stuck in the no. It's not for us to get stuck in self-judgment or guilt or shame. They're all energetic black holes. They will take all of your energy to no creation. And so your invitation then is to say, okay, where is this resistance coming from? Where am I feeling the friction? And what can I do instead? How can I transmute this stuck energy into creative energy? And that requires you to also be in some trust that your yes has value, that you are a worthy and important face of the expression of consciousness. And that's also a deep exploration of self-inquiry. That remembering, and when I use the word remembering here, my invitation to you is to think about it as a remembering in your gut, in your heart, of that wonder when you were so moved and motivated and inspired by your own ideas, by your own art, by your own hobbies and sports, and the times then you would maybe lay on your grass in the backyard and make images of the clouds. That was all readying the field for you to tune in to your yes energy and to allow it to have value, not just for you, but for the collective. And that's the part as well that is baked right into this experience, is to recognize that you expressing the creation that's creating through you is an important part of why your consciousness has taken this particular shape at this particular time. And we tend to think of it as random. So, my invitation to you right now is to just take a moment and be your own mirror and messenger in some ways by evoking these experiences of people around you, whether it's personal or professional, who say, thank you for doing what you do. Thank you for making that. Thank you for saying that. That's the power of you saying yes to your yes. And it can be either momentous or mundane, as Clarissa Pinkola Estes tells us. And that is your invitation to keep reminding yourself of the value of your yes energy, wherever that is taking you. So with that said, then, I would love for you to take a moment. We tuned in a bit to the no energy, to the friction, to the resistance. My invitation to you right now is to just take a moment and tune in to an experience in your life, either that you've already had or you continue to have or you're moving into having, and everything about you feels like a yes. Just take a moment. And now, in your mind's eye, tune in to where you feel that in your body, what that yes feels like. For me, it feels like a whole body experience and almost a beyond body experience. It feels expansive, creative, feels like it flows. So just take a moment. When you're using the word yes with as many exclamation points as you want, feel into that. You might even have a gentle smile come to your face. Might be like, oh, I want to go do that right now. You might feel your energy become more peaceful. My invitation to you is tuning in to know and tuning into yes are skills. And the more nuanced you become at tuning in to know, recognizing it as information to get you closer to yes, the more you can design your consciousness with efficiency and effectiveness and leading you to your bliss. So, that yes energy, my invitation to you is feel into it. And if you could grow it, if you could follow it down a path, where does it lead you emotionally? And again, all of these are just tasters for you to take with. What I offer is that yes is the human analog to bliss, that our pleasure is there for us to say yes to it so that we become the creator creating and express our consciousness in such a way that we are leading ourselves to bliss. And we're also lightening the load for others as we go, because that's where that gratitude comes from, that mirrors and messengers, when they say, thank you for doing what you do. Thank you for making that easier for me. I have such gratitude for your perspective on my life. Thank you. And so recognizing that that yes is a manifestation of bliss all the way along, even if it's a little bit challenging in the moment, make it bigger, grow it, follow it down the path, connect it to that bliss, and bring it down deep through your roots into the why, that I am simply a face of the consciousness that's meant to dig in deep to this particular yes, from the momentous to the mundane. And with that, then I make choices that are aligned with that yes, from the momentous to the mundane, the minutia, the little micro choices that I'm making, the more nuanced I am and discerning I am at following my yes, the more the bigger yeses feel like they're just the next step. And so we're not having to take massive leaps into the biggest yes, because we're following those smaller yeses all the way along. Again, bringing it back to what we could say is cliche, follow your bliss, when ultimately it's what it's there for. It's the path. It's not necessarily about purpose all the time, but it is about your bliss affects other people's bliss because you are expressing the yes energy coming through you. And you do have that much impact in the world. You do have that much value. From the momentous to the mundane, it all has value because innately you are here to express those yeses. So, my invitation to you now is to take this talk moving forward and notice that when your action is aligned with yes energy, that when you are taking no energy and refining it and transmuting it into getting closer to yes, that you will start to experience a different kind of flow. That you often, I hear from clients, from folks in circles say, it just got too easy and I got a bit intimidated. Well, that makes sense. That is how powerful you are. Our power, when we fully acknowledge it, when we fully acknowledge our power of choice, it can be intimidating. My invitation to you is to not let it make you smaller, but to make it a full invitation to more yes and to growing the expansiveness of your consciousness into the greater yeses as you move forward. And as you're doing that, you are a beautiful example, a living, breathing prayer for those who are watching it feel aligned for you and flowing for you to say, oh, I would love to have a bit of that flow in my life. And you can share this information with them as well through your living, breathing prayer. The fact that you are moving through this world in a way that's aligned with your truest expression. Lastly, I offer is this is an applied experience in the human world. There is going to be friction. There is going to be resistance in the forms of circumstances, of people. My invitation to you is to remind yourself that your yes has value and that it's worth persevering, and that all of that resistance and all of that friction is there to commit that energy to the yes, and also to bring, like we shared before, like I shared before, that refinement into this as life as a practice, as life as art. And with that said, my last invitation to you is to recognize that there are going to be some parts of consciousness design that feel very aligned for you to do things with. And there are going to be parts of consciousness design that bring you into a deeper awareness of a state of being. That's the beauty of being human, that we have beingness and we have doingness. And my invitation to you is to play with that, notice both of those um, experiences and continue to entwine them in your own consciousness design moving forward. That all of that has value and all of that is wisdom that's available to you when you slow into self, when you are in a place of listening, feeling, knowing, and being aware of your intuitive wisdom, not just what's coming through the mind in an applied way in this human experience, but what's coming through your heart, how your body is showing up, and how your energy shows up, your subconscious shows up through your dreams, or in seeing animals out in the world, or running into that person so beautifully synchronously and saying, oh, I see the emergence here. I'm going to say yes to that. So thank you for being here for this Bliss Talk. My invitation to you as well is if this speaks to you, you can follow me on Instagram at the Bliss Mystic. You can also go to theblissmystic.com and plug in your email address to get mind food directly to your inbox whenever it is coming through me in an inspired way. And I'm a yes to that. My invitation to you is to continue to seek out consciousness design inspiration anywhere you find it and continue to enjoy the awareness that your yes energy has the deepest value, and that's your bliss. So thank you all and rock on.